right, well, I see the time is 9:30, so we can call House Administration Committee meeting to order. Um, uh, all right, can I get roll call?
Mark Dolson. Here. Carol Adams.
Here.
Kelly Canton.
Here.
Elena Lang.
Here.
Jeff Hill. Here. All present.
All right, so this portion of the meeting is reserved for oral communications for anything that is not on the agenda, but in the purview of the district. Do we have any public comment? See none in the room, and I had no hands are raised online. So do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
I think we have a couple of people that are here today to talk about the rate assistance program, but I also see that we have HR here, so I didn't know if she was staying for the whole meeting or
I think she's staying for the board policy, but
Okay.
we can certainly take this out of order so that we can let the citizens say and they can go on. So if you would like to move the rate assistance program up to the top, we certainly can do that.
Okay, that would be appreciated. Yeah. All right, so moving on to unfinished business, we have none. And then new business, we will be talking about the rate assistance program first.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have the rate assistance program, which has been modified a few months ago. And there has been some suggestion that we ought to look at that even deeper and look at various ways to how the program would be administrated, whether that be through the district or through another nonprofit. The idea is, depending on which side of the fence you want to look at, if you're going to have people donate to a program, it's a lot cleaner financially if you have that done through a 501c3 rather than the district. Just because there's our budgets come and go every year, whereas if you have a 501c3, they can just have a pot of money that they can draw from. They can set it up however they want to do it. So again, finding somebody to do that sometimes is a challenge. But again, worst case scenario, and I say worst case in our case, would be for the district to have to do that because that's quite cumbersome. So if we could have, for instance, we have the Friends of the San Lorenzo Valley Water. If they want to take that on, that'd be great. Somebody's mentioned the churches. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, because sometimes they don't want to, do that either. So again, this is just something for you to talk about, maybe come up with. Maybe there's another idea out there we haven't explored yet. But again, you should have the new rate assistance in your packet. And again, if the board wants to change that or look at a different direction, we certainly can. And that's all we have at this point.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the insight on like how the donations would affect the the staff there. But one thing I really do feel like is that we do need to keep up with our rate increases and help offset that. And I did do some research into this, and I saw that there is a lot of other water districts that also do a senior discount within theirs too. So I don't feel like that senior discount is also kind of out of the realm of possibilities.
Right.
But I'll move to the board, the rest of the board discussing this. I don't know, Jeff, did you have any comments or thoughts on this?
Overall, I support enlarging the program. It's just, what are the details of how we do it? And I know there's been suggestions of going to talk to like Valley Churches United, but this isn't really in their bailiwick. And so I think we probably, if we're going to do this, need to assign somebody the job of actually going out and recruiting a third party to do it. And I don't know if that's a staff member or board member or maybe a volunteer from the public, but that we request that they assist with that. But I think that would be one of the next steps would be to look for some organization that would assist with that.
Okay. Shelley?
So previously with other utilities, you can set up where you have, I'm going to donate additional for firefighters for, there's a categories. So within the bill, the billing, is it possible to set up additional funds for whatever you want to call it, the relief, so that it helps the community, you're collecting it, and then, I have auto pay. What can I put towards, especially as we go through more stressful times, it's important that we have fallback for our community. And so $10, 15, 20, whatever you want to set up as an auto pay that could go to the relief within the billing system. It's an additional, it would get sent however you route the monies that is paid every month. Same with the the electric.
Yeah.
You can put in for the different categories. Therefore, you don't have to, that's nice if the different churches or religious establishments that would be great. They could add to that pot as well, but I would totally support an additional line that would say, for the community relief act.
I think that's the strongest argument I've had for the water district actually doing it, because it's easier to check a box on your bill than it is to try to get people to, go door to door to get people to donate like that. Yeah, absolutely. Mark?
Thanks. I'm speaking both for myself and partly for the Friends of San Lorenzo Valley Water, who are an advocate group for this measure. And from my point of view, there's multiple aspects to this, and I guess I'd like us to be a little more structured in our approach to this topic. The first question for me would be, is there a consensus that we want the district to do more to address the affordability issue? And then the next question would be, what do we think the district can do? And on the first front, I have a pretty strong sense that people do support doing more. There's a moral argument because the state of California has declared that affordable water is a human right. And if that means anything to us, it means we have an obligation to try and enable that. I know there's one director on record who thinks it's exclusively the state's responsibility, but I don't agree with that. Secondly, and maybe more as a practical issue, there really is widespread concern within the community about affordability. We saw that with this highly contentious Measure U that was on the last ballot. The central theme of that was that there are people that are struggling to pay their water bill, and Measure U was one proposed way of addressing that. I don't think it was a viable way of addressing that, but I do think that there is a lot of continued concern, and that means it's important to me for the district to address this, both because we think it's the right thing to do, and because it's a practical matter. If we really are trying to maintain support and build sort of community engagement, we want to be responsive to that community concern. So that's why stage one, we need to do something. Now the question is what? And there are a range of possibilities, and it's a significant range, and it might be worthwhile breaking that down and attacking those separately, because some of them have more demands than others in terms of the amount of investigation we would need to do and the amount of things that we need to figure out, and they might also have different priorities in terms of timing. So one thing that we believe is valuable and worth pursuing is to increase the amount of support. In other words, the size of the discount, and that's also the one that I would give top priority to, just based on the fact that there's a budget cycle coming up, and that if we're going to spend more money in the coming year on the rate assistance program, this would be the time to figure out how much and to get agreement on that. The specific proposal that the Friends have put forward expands it. the key feature of this is that, we want to accommodate the people who are eligible, and we want to accommodate them on a basis that tracks with the increase in rates. And so I think we have an estimate that that would increase the budget this year on the order of $16,000. So that would be one very specific measure we could talk about. Another direction to consider, and the one that people have been mentioning here, is can we augment the district's resources, because the district's resources are constrained by Prop 218 and by budget overall, and any money we spend on this, is money that doesn't get spent somewhere else. So if we just had more money, that's the idea of donations. That would be very nice. And it's true that on the one hand, it would be easiest for the district to just say, well, sure, write us a check and that's that. But I think it would likely be much more effective if the district were actively facilitating donations, as suggested by Shelley. And we'd probably have a much larger amount there. And that's something that I think could be investigated over a period of months, because it doesn't urgently need to be addressed. And then a third thing, which I think is also important and worth discussing, but not necessarily today, is can we expand access? Right now, you have to qualify for the PG&E care criteria. And there are seniors, there are renters, there are people that we would believe it would be appropriate to include in this program that don't automatically fit in that way. And can we look at ways of expanding the criteria so that more people are covered and it's more effective for the community? So that would be my input. I would start right now with the question of, can we allocate more budget for it?
Okay. All right, Cheryl?
More questions than answers around here. And I had some of the same questions about, number one, who should be doing this? Number two, who should be eligible? Number three, how much that should they be eligible for? And what is the definition of affordable? Do we have a definition of what is affordable? And I come to this from a position of, being a ratepayer in another water district as well. And their base rate is higher than our base rate. So what is affordable? I don't know. It's gonna depend on who's paying the bill, I think. I read in this rate assistance program document that renters are included in this if they qualify for the PG&E rate. So I think that is some people that are covered here, but I just, where's the money going to come from? Can we augment the rate, or can we augment the fund either through the budget process, with just regular funding, through pulling money from some other pot and putting it in here? Can we augment it through ratepayer increased donations, which is a great idea? But if we do that, then how? Because I worked in government before, and I know the budget process, and I know you can't just take checks from people and put it. You have to have a budget place to put it. So, are we missing? If we go that route, are we missing other donors that might want to give us money to contribute to this overall thing? So I don't know what the answer is. Again, I just have questions, but I would like to keep things open and maybe have, I think this requires more than just a, hey, yeah, let's do it.
Mhm.
Although, I think we're all in agreement that we have to have something. And there's a lot of needy people out there, and there's going to be more probably coming in the future. So who's going to take this on? And does this need another committee to take it on? Or can this committee take it on? I mean, it's a big project. Looking from my perspective, it's a big project to take on. Lots of research. I'm going to have to connect with budgets, and the finance department and perhaps community members who might be able to assist either through donations or through administering this project. Um, given that we have limited staffing here, I think we have to keep open the thought and maybe do exploration in the thought of having some community partner administer this. That's kind of where I'm at on all of it.
And just so you know, as far as where money can come from, because of Prop 218, it cannot come from ratepayer funds, so it would have to come from something else, like we rent land to this like Verizon for towers. So we'd have to use like money from that. Did you have something you wanted to say? Sorry.
I was just going to say that we're fast approaching the budget process and we should probably also address this in the Budget and Finance Committee.
Great idea.
And I'll make sure that happens. And I think one of the things we need to do is determine to what extent could we increase the program just with what we've got available without, soliciting additional funds from other people. And then also then start looking at other places where we could solicit funds. Because I'm pretty sure the amount that was set in previous years was set arbitrarily.
Maybe
So-
based on funding available and trying to
I
get
mean,
it
there
out.
was an
to
upper limit
people. Yeah,
because
exactly.
it has to be non-Prop 218 funds,
Mhm.
but I don't know that there was any in-depth study as to what the level should be and how much money we should put in the budget for it and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, just as a historical note, my recollection is that the amount initially allocated, which was $25,000 per year, was arbitrary, except it was convenient because that was the amount of revenue that was coming from a specific cell tower.
Yeah.
There are other revenues available that are not restricted, and
Yes,
so
I
it certainly could be
understand.
more than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's rent on this building that we rent to people, and there's an additional cell tower that we're engaged in bringing online, and there's several other ways to fund it. But the question is, I think Budget and Finance has to look at that and say, okay, how much money is total there? What other demands do we have on that money? And then see where it fits, and then look and see, does that give us any room to either increase the amount of the discount or increase the number of people that have the discount, or do some of both? And we probably also need to look at some population statistics here, economic statistics, which we should probably get from the county. And perhaps we can talk to our supervisor Martinez and see if she has any access to that.
That's a good plan. Yeah, I think we definitely need to probably kind of be thinking about these as two separate things, everything that we need for this upcoming budget. And then the donation stuff. I mean, if that's donations, that's not affecting our budget, so we can kind of talk more about what that is later. But right now, the critical is, are we going to, like you said, increase the number of people, increase the amount of money? But again, I definitely fully support making sure that we are offsetting these rate increases. And I think it's also a protection for the district because, it took a lot of time and resources and money to fight Measure U, and we
Yes.
don't want that coming back to us. So we really need to be proactive as a water district and be addressing these issues now. But I'm gonna go out to public comment. I'm not saying we can't come back to this after this, but we have a lot of people that have some things to say, and I'd like to hear from them. So if anyone from the public would like to say something.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Mosier of Felton, and I just want to thank you all. I appreciate the committee's efforts to address this issue of the rate assistance program. I am the facilitator for the Friends of San Lorenzo Valley Water, and this is a core issue for our group. We feel that access to safe, affordable, and reliable water should be treated as a fundamental human right, as it states in California law. We were early in this. The program was adopted 4.5 years ago. We did a lot of research on it before that, brought it to the board. We're very grateful that the board instituted the program. It was fairly innovative at that point. We didn't find a lot of other water districts with a program like this, so SLBWD was in the forefront of addressing this issue as our and it comes along with rate increases across the state among all the water districts because of all of the infrastructure problems that the districts have. We have the added problems of fires and storms and also, well, I won't go into that, but we face a lot of additional issues in terms of making water affordable that other districts don't have. You've got a letter from April Zilber in your packet. We are circulating a letter like that, a very similar letter. We have 50 signatures so far. We didn't submit it to you today because we're still gathering those signatures, and we want to make sure we have as many signatures as possible when this gets to the board. But we do have showing a strong community support. We have not run into any opposition at this point to the idea of expanding the program. I'm not sure if the committee has the proposal we submitted to the board on February 3rd. Has the committee got the copies of that proposal?
I included in this packet. I did not include it.
Okay, well, there's 4 pieces to it. It's mentioned in April's letter. And you've talked about all 4 of them at this point. I'll just talk about, this is a living document we have. We submitted it to the board February 3rd. So it's over 2 months now. We've had a lot of community discussion, a lot of discussion within our group. And so I really appreciate the committee taking this on. I just want to briefly give you some of our updated thinking about each of these 4 proposals. The first has to do with increasing the amount, and you've talked about that. We consider this just basic. This is something that was considered in the Budget and Finance Committee, which I sat on when we did the rate study, that the base rate going up, we need to also increase the RAP benefits as they go up. And that's why the board did that, raised it to $20 after the rate increase went into effect. One of the things that has come up in our discussions is, well, what is this going to cost? And in our proposal, we didn't lay that out, but we made these estimates that if you increase the benefits for just the current enrollees, it will cost the district $7,200 next year. We would like, the incremental approach, I think, is absolutely right. That's what the board has done. The way they kept the cost down was to say, first come, first serve. The first 100 people who apply will get it, but anyone after the first 100, we won't have the benefit available, so that we know what the budget is going to be. It took 3 years for the program to get fully enrolled, and now we have I think 116. What we're proposing is if you up the number of possible enrollees by 30 more people, just for this year, to see how that goes, and it will give you a chance to see what the needs are and decide what you want to do next. If you add 30 more enrollees, it'll cost an additional $9,000 a year, which would be you're asking for $16,000. We're proposing $16,000, $200 on next budget, which we feel is very, very modest given the big increase in revenue that we're getting because of the new rates. In terms of renters, it is a complicated issue. The renters are not eligible now. They were when the program started, but when you switch from billing renters to billing their landlords, the renters no longer, and that was so they wouldn't be cutting anybody's water off. You had the district needed to bill the landlords, and so the renters are not ratepayers now. The landlords are, and so the renters aren't able to apply. And there's a lot of complications in this. We think this is something we're studying, but given your staffing issues, we see this as something to put on the back burner. We would suggest that seniors, even those who don't qualify for care for low volume users, should also be qualified. That would be an easy way. It'd be easy for people to show that they are qualified. This is something that many businesses do. I think other water districts are now recognizing that seniors on fixed income have a lot of issues, a lot of financial issues. These are people who have been our teachers, have been valuable contributors to our community. And now they're struggling. We want to be able to help. This is not an issue of charity. This is an issue of community responsibility in my mind. In later discussions, we also realized the people who are disabled should also be considered as possible enrollees. Another issue I think that should be looked at. Again, this is because these are valuable people in our community, and we all need to help. And but for the grace of God, any of us would be there. So this is not a matter of charity. This is a matter of community building, community and social justice. And finally, for voluntary donations, we've had a lot of discussions about this, whether we as an organization should take this on. We're not a 501c3. We're not in a position to become a formal 501c3 organization. I feel quite strongly that what Shelley said is really the way that the district should explore to do this. I think if you just gave people the opportunity to give $1 or $2 every month, that a lot of us would do that, and we would be raising twice to 3 times as much money as we're going to be budgeting this with no outside effort. We have talked to other 501c3s. They do not want to take this on except as an emergency one-time kind of thing. And to maintain that kind of fundraising over years requires a lot of infrastructure and a substantial part of what you raise. I know this because I worked for 501c3 my career. You have to spend a lot of money in order to raise the money. And I don't see another organization willing to invest that kind of time and money over a long term. I think we could do it 1 year, but I think it would, because of the lack of the infrastructure, it won't work very well. So those are the comments that we'd like to bring to your attention at this point. We would love to work with you on this as you go forward. I've done some additional research on other water districts. Lots of them have it now. And a lot of them are now doing substantial, much more than what we're proposing, what the district is doing in terms of what the benefits are. For example, at East Bay Mud up in the Bay Area, up to 50% of the base rate is now is what the benefit people are getting who qualify. And they've also, many of the districts are using higher income rates than what the CARE program has. So we'll continue to do that research. I think that we were in the vanguard. I propose that we stay in the vanguard and deal with this very serious issue that is really important for our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a question for Joe?
Oh,
We have been using the criteria for eligibility that they have to be eligible for the PG&E discount. Do you have any thoughts on that? Should we continue to do that? Should we have our own criteria, which might be different from theirs? Does the Friends have a position on that?
We're very cognizant of, we don't want to put a lot of burden on the staff, particularly given the situation of staffing right now. So it makes it easy. You come in with your CARE eligibility. And that's why for the senior program, what the other districts are doing are using higher income rates. But we felt like if someone can come in and show that they're 65 or over and that they're only using 1 or 2 units of water, they should just be eligible and make it as kind of an honor system. That those who don't really need the program wouldn't apply, but those who are on fixed income, and this is something that they really would be important for them, that they would apply. We'll see how that goes if we just add 30 people. But it makes a very low burden on the staff to be able to determine eligibility. To set up our own income criteria, I think could take a lot of, for a large district, maybe that would be feasible, giving the staff, but I think for our district,
To me, that looked like it would be a lot of work. We'd have to maintain a fair amount of confidential information also, because we'd have to be very careful with the qualifying information that they gave us. And so we'd probably have to buy another safe.
And same for those who are disabled, it'd be relatively easy for people to show that, so there wouldn't be a big staff burden to determine eligibility.
Yeah.
And also the fact that you put a cap on how many people apply, which we could increase as it goes, it gives us a chance to see where there are people taking advantage of this that really aren't appropriate enrollees, so we can adjust things.
Thank you.
was that 6,200 number you gave? How much was that raising it by?
$5.
Oh, so I was thinking,
$5 a month. which is about what the rate increase will be in the next fiscal year.
The issue that I see with donations, and the Budget and Finance Committee will need to weigh in on this, is currently the program is that it does, nothing rolls over. Well, if you have things donated to a specific program,
And we'd have to
that's
have an
gonna have
account.
to roll over somehow, or I don't know how that's gonna have to work out. So please bring that in when you bring it up to the Budget and Finance, please make
Yes.
sure that
And we may
the
need to,
idea being that people donate to that certain cause, they expect it to continue,
yeah,
so.
we may need to check with legal on that also. Legal and our financial consultant, because yes, you're right, we would end up with a fund that we probably would not exhaust every year. And then what do you do with that rollover? Yes.
Yeah.
So otherwise, everything else we do is a
Not too
fiscal year.
terrible a problem if you have too much, you can just keep up in the assistance. Get rid of
Well,
it,
but you end up the end of the year,
yeah.
you know, all of a sudden you've got $8,000 left over or something like that. What do you do with it?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Did we have any more comments from the public? Yes, thank you.
I'm Lorraine Palmer and I'm a ratepayer. I've lived in Louisville for 35 years and have been on the receiving end of the what I would consider very restrictive rate increases. And I've come to the district and talked to you numerous times about the situation. And the thing that I want to stress here is it's wonderful what we're doing now and the work of this organization, Friends of the Water, and the receptiveness of the board has changed drastically over the years. But I think there's people have this idea that there's a safety net out there that's robust. It isn't. And I think if you took a look at your rates of what people who use less than a unit, who use maybe one unit over multiple months, the per gallon cost that they're paying for water is extraordinary compared to somebody who's using 20 units of water. And it's a very regressive pricing structure. And if you look at those people who are using so little water are struggling. They can't get their bill down anymore. And there isn't a lot of help.
Mhm.
So what I've heard today from numerous people here is really hopeful. But the urgency, I think, is greater than what is being presented. Because this is not just to deal with this, keeping up with this rate increase currently. It's the one before that and the one before that. And it is the depth of the struggle for a few people out there is really great. And the burden should really be with this board. It is a human right, and I would want to see it. The expectation be that the 501c3s will take care of it. It really needs to be addressed within this organization. You need to be able to look at what the people are paying at the very lowest end of the usage. And you need to look at how many people that is. Publish the statistics. Tell us how much you're paying, how much it costs per gallon to produce your water, and how many people are using less than a unit, what they're paying per gallon, so that the ratepayers understand, yeah, that is a legitimate problem. And yes, I would like to donate to that every month, but that's not equitable. And it would be too difficult to change the rate structure again, but I would say that probably never should have been put out this way. The information was published to the people voting, started at 2 units. Nowhere in your literature did you publish what happens to the increase, what happens to people who are using 1 unit or less than a unit. You didn't show the burden at the lowest end of usage. So I don't think voters even have information. So if we could publish that and show them and say, yes, we would like to see people donate to help shift this burden, I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you for your comments. Well, I want to see if we have anyone. We do have people online, but last time I looked, we had no hands raised.
no hand.
No hands.
There was one hand raised.
Oh,
Elaine.
all right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, all right. Elaine, you have the floor. Elaine Fresco, can you unmute yourself? There you go. Oh, you're still muted.
Okay, I figured it out.
All right,
I just want to say I really appreciate the discussion so far. I can see that this is a really complex issue. I think it's hard to put more of a burden on the staff, but I think the very basics that you're talking about, it's a modest proposal. Increasing the budget just makes sense to counteract the raises that we've had. I think that I would be very happy to pay more on my water bill, just donate through my water bill. And I think other people would also. And I think limiting the number of people that can apply in the beginning then would help the water district understand what the burden would be and how the program is working. So I think you have the beginning of a very good way to set this up.
all right, thank you, Elaine. All right, we'll see no more public comment. Do we have anything else here from the boards on anything that was said?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
For those that need the service, to have the rate relief, what are the number of people, households that need this relief? You know, it started at 100 and now we're proposing 30 more at 130, right? Did I get my numbers? Issue. What is the number? If you were to open it up in the applicants, is it 500? Is it 400? Is it 300? And what's the data that would be associated with those households if you were to say all 500 if they qualify? I'm just throwing weird numbers out. I don't know what it is. If we had that, then you could project the uppermost of your budget and also the lowermost of your budget. I'm one of those that's a 1 because I grew up in SoCal where we're a what? A desert. And we have to ration our water. So here I am now, 1, and I got hit with something, I don't know what it is, but that's right now I'm holding because I'm okay. But how about someone else that's at a 1 that maybe with the rate and and everything that goes into that, what if that is truly, truly a hardship? And I think if you knew how many people in this community who are our friends and our neighbors, how do we support community? So what's our numbers out there to give you the high end of the budget? Okay, I'll stop.
No, you're fine. No.
Okay.
I think he was just saying he wanted. No. If you had something to say, sure.
I can give you what we've done research on this, not this round, but when we started 4 years ago, we contacted PG&E and asked how many people qualified for the CARE program in our area. They don't have the numbers categorized by our boundaries, but the best we could tell, we thought there'd be 1,000 to 1,500 people that might qualify. If you look at the poverty rates that the Census Bureau puts out, it would suggest about that many. So we were really surprised when the program started. We only had like 40 people apply. We didn't quite understand it. We thought maybe it was because so many people would be renters. And so that's why we thought including renters was important. And we also thought perhaps people just didn't know about it, or maybe it wasn't enough money to make them bother come and apply. We didn't understand why so few people applied. But I think the incremental approach is still the right way to do it, so that we can see how it goes. We can expand gradually, and it won't be a big hit on the budget initially. It'll give us some time to raise some private money, I hope. And then we really need to reach out to people and let them know about the program. But we were surprised. I don't have a good answer for it.
I think also, you know, applying in the application process, is it easy to do, right? If you're a senior, some are not savvy with online experiences. So how do you apply? How do you approach? Where are you with that? What medical devices do you have or not have? Or, you know, that whole composite of what constitutes someone that needs water, electorate, whatever it should be. And how are we adapting and adjusting to those that now might be fighting for their very retirement, pensions, healthcare? How do we step in? And if you're saying 1,000, which that's why I thought 100 is like, felt so low to me, especially as you hit the retirement age. I'm 70, I've hit it. And so you have to be very wise, but then you also have the mounting healthcare issues and a cost of living and. So what are the budget numbers that would come in to support? What do you need to have if you had 1,000 people?
Mhm.
And how would you support that initial and then ongoing?
Mhm.
You know, how can we help each other? And again, you know, in my mortgage, I can pay extra, right? This, I'm gonna ongoing give my mortgage $30, which I could then apportion and look at, how am I gonna do my budget? Because I have a budget.
Mhm.
We all have to have a budget and live by that budget. So what does that look like? We have it for 100, 130, and you said it was 7,200 initially? Or, and then you propose another 7,000, so I think you said it's 16,
It's,
something like that?
it's about, what is it, 28,000 now, we're proposing adding 16,200 to get 30 more people on the program and increase.
So, and rollover, that would be, you know, you would roll over to the additional households. That's what it's earmarked for in your budget line. That's for the program, and yay, you got extra funds, and it just keeps supporting administrative costs, whatever it takes to the software program, so that you can then
Mhm.
do the line item like you do in your mortgage. There's programs for that. So that's why, you know, what are the numbers?
Yeah.
So it's good to know. It's a lot more than 130.
Mhm.
So I think I would suggest that we send this to budget and finance to add 30 people and raise by 5 and see what they say as far as the budget, so we don't miss this next budget cycle. And then as far as what we're talking about, this donation, maybe that can come back here, or I don't know if it needs to also go to budget and finance, or if we
I
handle
think
it here,
Budget and finance will look at the whole program.
the whole
so,
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That,
I think you need the answer from
Yeah.
Heather. To
Okay.
how
I can
how's that
guarantee you that,
donation gonna go?
yeah, I
Okay.
can guarantee you that once the door is opened in budget and finance, that members of the committee will want to do a complete examination.
so I would ask that this goes over to the budget and finance,
Yeah.
and you said that you would make sure that that happened.
Yeah, we'll put
Yeah.
that on the next budget
Okay,
finance
cool.
agenda.
Yeah.
Just wondering, in terms of public, explaining this to the public, is the committee, can we say that the committee is supportive of that part of the proposal? Is that something we could say?
I would be
Is that-
hesitant on that. And the reason is that when you get into, you know, making public announcements that you partially support part of a proposed program that might or might not happen type of thing, it gets very hard to explain that in a crisp, clear way, and people will get,
But then I guess
we need to be farther along before we make any kind of announcements.
So the committee can't make any formal announcement at this point?
I think technically on the agenda, it didn't specify that we take any action, so I don't even know if legally we can do that. I think we can say that everyone here generally supported the idea during the discussion, but I don't think that we can do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll have in the minutes that we were generally supportive.
Yeah,
And-
I mean, this is a discussion item, it's not an action item.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when we get to that point, hopefully after the budget and finance, we'll see
Yeah.
where it's at.
I think what you can say, Jim, is that this committee has approved the Budget and Finance Committee looking at this to see the viability as far as what impact on the budget will be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess good way to put it. Thank you. All right. Yeah, go ahead. This is really an important topic.
Again, I just want to stress that I think the issue is a lot more urgent to certain people than what I'm hearing here.
Mhm.
There is a small group of people who are really, really suffering. So I would want to add urgency to
Mhm.
support and improve.
Yes, I hear that. I have neighbors that live next to me that have struggled to pay their bill because they lost their house in the CZU fire and then lost their husband, was a source of income. So this really, it hits close to home for me. We can't act any faster than the budget approval, so that's what we really wanted to get it on the agenda today. So it had the chance to go to budget and finance before the budget is approved. So like we will work as quickly as we can on this. But thank you. Anything else? I think we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda, which I guess would be the board policy manual.
Right. Thank you all.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, before you should have part of your packet, the new revised, new and improved, I guess you know. Board policy manual, a couple of things that have come up, that I suggest that we would, consider is, in several areas of the policy, president and chairperson are used synonymously. And so it's kind of, I think we just need to put a little definition thing in there that says, when the president is not there, the vice president and our chairperson, like when they're talking about this committee. So we just need to put a little identifier in there, so that clears that up. Then the next thing, if you go to 9F, which is on, if you look on your manual, it should be page 9 of it. Somebody brought up, it talks about in red, it says to ensure public business is conducted in an orderly and efficient manner following the required public comment period for any agendized item. The chairperson may call a point of order, including during any director comment, to seek a consensus vote of the members present to discontinue any further board discussion of the item at issue, et cetera, et cetera. One of the concerns that a person has raised is, do you cut off a board member who's right in the middle of his, he said the first sentence and you cut him off? You're like, okay, well, let's move on. So is consensus 3 out of 2? Is consensus unanimous consensus? Is it consensus after, a period of time, whatever time limit that is? So, again, I'm not saying that this is something that we have to hammer out here. I'm just saying that if somebody's got an idea, that'd be great. But I think that it's going to come up when this goes to the board. There is an issue of is this directed to cut people off before they have had a chance to say their piece? Is it 4-to-1 consent? Because consensus can mean a whole lot of things. So I think we need to, obviously this person is asking that item cleared up. So just asking for thoughts. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
So in a meeting, do you have the amount of time, like I'm gonna give 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 10 minutes to this topic? And the response time is, and then we move on in the agenda.
No, the only thing we have right now is there's a restriction on the public comment, usually 3 minutes. The board's usually very generous, if it goes over a little bit, they're fine. But that's kind of the only limit. When it comes back to the board, it's kind of open-ended. And, I guess, some of the history here is, there's been, for lack of a better word, some filibustering going on at times. So, so I think the idea is you want to control how, the time that's spent. Obviously, everybody only has so much time. So, and maybe that is, something to where when it comes back to the board, based on, the public comment you've received, maybe the board limit is 5 minutes. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. Again, in the interest of conducting business, you would like to be timely, but at the same time, you don't want to be to the point where you feel that somebody hasn't felt that they made their point. Do I think that 5 minutes you can make your point? I think you should.
Yeah.
But again, it all depends on a person's perspective. So on one hand, we're limiting the public. Why wouldn't we limit the board?
So would a timekeeper, 'cause when I would draft my agendas, I have staff meetings and I have to get through topics, say whatever they were.
Right.
And I'm going to allot for this topic 15 minutes in an hour meeting.
Right.
We need a timekeeper to keep us on track, and then we'll table it. If it goes and it's really about a safety issue or of a concern, then you realize you're gonna have to shelve and bring back next meeting or an adjacent meeting, you bring it up, but there's a timekeeper. And that timekeeper says, okay, you're 5 minutes out or whatever time you've allotted. Because sometimes you have a lot of issues to address and to keep rolling them over and rolling them over and rolling them over, you accomplish nothing.
Right.
You know, and you need to start working on these things because they're of a safety, budget, HR, there are all kinds of things that you need to. I don't know if that would, if you're allowing the public 3 minutes and they're important, then maybe the topic gets, and then your timekeeper is the
Right.
evil person.
Maybe after like 5 minutes or something like.
I'm just saying, yeah,
I
whatever you
don't
think your topic is warrants in the matter of time, that's important. Because that you have an idea and a philosophy, you want to get it out there to better the whole
Well, you
work.
know, the other way you could do it, just now that you brought that up, you know, you see it all the time at the Congress where somebody says, well, I'll give up my 5 minutes to Joe.
Exactly.
So now he's got 10 minutes, you know,
Right.
so I mean,
Right.
maybe you could do something like that where every board member has 5 minutes. And if they want to give their time to another board member, they could. So,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
again, I think, yeah, otherwise, like you say, these things drag on and on and on. And after a while, you even forget what the topic is because you've been there so long.
I think
So-
that's what this is trying to tag. I think his hand was up first, so. Mark,
Mark.
sorry.
Oh, thanks. I understand the challenge here a bit. I'm reluctant to look for more formal mechanisms like timekeepers. If people were acting across the board with good judgment, we wouldn't have an issue. And we're trying to enforce a mechanism that allows some good judgment to prevail. And that's where I think this idea that, you know, ideally the chairperson would say, okay, I don't think this is productive. And if there's a consensus agreement, that would count as, okay, we all kind of agree, except for this one person that we've heard enough. I mean, so in general, the two extremes that I think you could legitimately worry about are, if you have a rule that allows too much latitude for the speaker, they'll abuse it if they are so inclined. On the other hand, if it gives too much discretion to the chairperson, that person could abuse it. So I do appreciate that this, by saying that there should be some sort of consensus, which is ill-defined, tries to strike the best medium that we can. I feel like it's an adequate directive. I mean, I understand that you may have to decide exactly what's the consensus, but we're trying to allow for good judgment to dominate the course of the meeting.
I,
Agree.
Oh,
so,
Go ahead, Jeff.
why don't we, you know, let's define, seek a consensus of the members, and instead, of the board members, and instead say, she'll call a vote, on whether to continue discussion or not. And, you know, she'll make a motion to, either continue or not continue the discussion and have a vote, and the majority wins.
I'm okay with that.
I mean,
Okay. Cheryl?
Agree.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And then the next thing is 9M, which is on page 14. It says here they're concerned about the person, the item on the consent calendar. Do individual members of the public have the ability to pull items from the consent calendar? I think in my experience, citizens cannot. They can request the board to consider pulling something from the agenda. And so I think that's a cleaner way to do it because the board has ultimate responsibility anyway.
Mhm.
And so a citizen can request the board to pull something. Otherwise, you could have every citizen come up on every item on the consent calendar and ask to pull it.
Mhm.
Whereas, you know, the board, it may be a simple question the board can clear up. So in my mind, I think it should be, we should maybe write something into item in that basically says a member of the public can ask the board to consider removing an item from the consent calendar.
Mhm.
And the board would decide. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah,
I can guarantee you that, if there is an issue that, you know, is even halfway reasonable that they want to pull, there's at least one board member who will say, I'll pull it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and then regardless of what the issue is,
Right.
it won't take.
But I think in that case, I think it has to be a vote of the board.
yeah,
Yes,
Has to be a majority vote of the board.
yes, please put that in there.
yeah, please put that in there, yes. Otherwise, we'll have,
It'll dissolve.
we'll never
It
get a
would-
consent
yeah,
agenda.
it
We'll never
would.
get a consent
It's
agenda
all
done.
flow, right. And then the next item is on the same page down at item 10, says the last sentence where it says for telephonic and other remote regular board meetings, we scratch that part. And it says should not be shown, it says before the meeting should not be shown to the board of directors during the meeting. For things that are not posted. Do we want to put in there except in rare cases? Because I can see where, you know, we could have some kind of emergency going on, we gotta meet. And it says for telephonic or other remote or virtual regular board meetings, meeting materials that are not posted to the district's website before the meeting should not be shown to the board of directors during the meeting. You could have an emergency meeting
Mhm.
where that's not possible, but you need to do that. So I think we need to put
Mm,
something in there that says
Except in emergency
except in
circumstances.
an emergency meeting,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is allowed by the Brown Act, where, you know, that says it shall comply with all. And I think maybe the way we do that, because it says it shall comply with all applicable requirements of the Brown Act, and we can just put including emergency meeting situations.
Wait, it would
That's
only,
already in there.
it would only be in an emergency if it was
Correct.
only telephone or virtual anyways, because
Yeah.
we're not allowed to do that.
Right. So I just think we just put that in there so people understand that there is an emergency provision in the Brown Act that allows for that.
Okay, yeah, no, I like that.
And I think that's it. That's all I had. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I definitely do, but I see a hand raised. You go ahead, you can go first, for sure.
Thanks. I mean, there may be some duplication here. I just have some brief notes that I have to decipher. So in order, thanks, yeah,
Copies
yeah,
feedback.
yeah, in section 5J. Let me scroll back there. I think this is very minor. I think it was. There's just an issue with the numbering. It could be fixed. It's just like a typo, right? Right. I mean, so an item was inserted, which I'm personally fine with, but it affects the numbering of the other items. And so if someone's just making a note of these things, that's all I would say about that. Similarly, in that same section, there's a number of residual references to interim general manager that I think
that's-
somebody wants to clean up.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we should be
I had
striking those.
located a
Yeah.
couple of those.
Those will be struck.
So here's one that came up for me when I was reading this again that hadn't previously been discussed, and I don't know how people might feel about, but I'm just going to ask it. Under section 7, board powers, duties and functions, 7B duties, personnel, number 5, annually evaluate the general manager and district council. Support that. That happens in closed session. The information that comes out of that is absolutely minimal. personally, I would like it if it were public knowledge what the directive that the board has given the general manager for the year is. Like, here are the top 3 priorities for you and the district. Here's, we're gonna check in quarterly publicly and get reports on how those things are going. In other words, I'd like there to be some meaningful feedback loop here that the public has visibility into about what it is that the board is directing the general manager to do in conjunction with that evaluation.
So I'm lost here.
Yeah,
You
and,
are-
can you give me the page number of the actual patent, like this particular, you're on 5? Oh, okay.
The only issue there would that be that I can think of, that we would have to check with legal as far as what could be released, you know? I think what you're saying is very reasonable. You know, this is his goals and objectives for the next year. But obviously some things will be like, and he was given a very poor rating. I mean, obviously there's things, so we would have to check with legal, what can we release out of
Understood.
closed session? But yeah, I think something like that is, you should know, you know, because
Yeah.
that's obviously, we're talking about public business in there, especially if we're talking about goals and objectives for the GM to achieve over his next
Oh,
year.
which one is this? Page 5?
Page 5, item 5B,
7
annually
Oh,
evaluate.
there it
the
is.
General manager. Yes.
I found it.
So, and I'm lost here. What did you want to do with that?
I want there to be more visible information about the outcome of that evaluation. Like, what is it that the general manager's directed to focus on? You could have just said that the district would annually publish what its priorities are, what it's going to accomplish, and it would actually check on how that's going. But it's specific to the general manager in this case.
Well, I think this is talking about the general manager's personnel review, which is a confidential document. Which could be things like, you're misbehaving, or, I mean, there's all kinds.
Right, but that's John's point. That can be deleted.
Yeah.
I think there's a public component to this.
Well, are you thinking more of just strategic planning kinds of things? Like, what is the water district focusing on this year? It's not simply just what the general manager is trying to do, but what is the board trying to do? What is the board's priorities for this year? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, it is, but the general manager is the one who's responsible.
Of course.
And it's simplest for me to just say, here's the things that we're going to check with the general manager on progress on over the course of the year.
Yeah,
So,
I think we tried to have like a meeting earlier in January that kind of would have covered what you're saying, and I don't know. Like maybe putting something in more like that we need to go
Yeah.
through those types of meetings at the beginning of the year and then, talk about what are our top priorities for the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
so-
kind of like capital improvement project, like, okay, what are our, and you kind of do that in the budget process, right? You identify certain things you're gonna try to hit.
Mhm.
Now, if there's something specific that you want the general manager to do, that's why I say we'd have to be careful as far as talking to legal about,
yes,
okay, what can be released and what can't.
yeah, I think this section is focused on the actual personnel review, where we say, John, you didn't wash your face before you came to the meeting on a regular basis,
I
or
hate it when that happens.
stop smoking in the men's room, or whatever, and then I'm issuing those as just, ridiculous comments, but, they're personal comments.
Yeah.
And I think what Mark is looking for belongs somewhere in here, but not there.
That could be fine.
Something, Shelley?
Position description usually has overall function and however you're
Yes.
putting it down. So then there's milestones for which the manager, director needs to accomplish. Came in on budget, came in on whatever those milestones are, and they're to be done in 3, 6, whatever the parameters.
Mhm.
Did you meet those, fail those? So really, was the position, is it going along and meeting the milestones per the position description? right? Because it's right there, your position description of everything that, and then whether or not you washed and groomed and
Well,
showered is, that's, you know.
well, I
that-
was just using those as.
I think for their,
examples, but
you
yeah.
know, too much perfume, right? And I don't know, aftershave, but I
Yeah.
think you know, are you meeting the milestones that are set forth under the position description?
So
And
I suspect, and I'm not an attorney on this, but I suspect our attorney will tell us that we would have to be very general in those, you know, like, did not meet expectations in this area. Rather than, you know, fail to call people and do the such and such and such and such. The amount of detail would be very, very limited.
Yeah.
Very high level.
still in
don't
progress, the
disagree.
milestone is, it doesn't say you failed, because then you go, oh, why did, the milestone has not met its objective, yeah, it's so broad, but then in
Yeah.
in your review, that's where it gets into details, and that's why it's protected,
Yes.
is your.
So we'll have to talk with legal about this one, I think. Don't you?
Yeah, well, I don't know, do you as staff know a good place to put in about something like this where the general manager at the beginning of the year can kind of talk about the goals and objectives? Like,
Seems more like a strategic plan, which I
Right.
don't think we've done in quite some time. but
Yeah.
To me, seems that would be where that would go.
Yeah.
And the general manager would just be trying to make that strategic plan come to life. And so,
Public would have an idea on if you've met your goals and objectives, right? Because we all know what the plan is.
right,
Did we-
right.
Well, the other thing
And who
too,
sets the goals?
Right.
It should be part of the strategic plan. That's a living document that's reviewed on a regular basis,
Right.
which we don't really have. I've read the old one. There was a lot of good stuff in there. I know it's a pain in the tushy to pull that thing back up and go through it. But it sounds like we need a rudder for this ship, and that might be what we need.
well, usually in the budget, you have a little, the letter from the general manager is always in there. And it kind of lays out what your goals are, at least for that budget.
Yeah.
And what you intend to accomplish, and whether it's operations, whether it's, organizational, whatever. And so those are kind of spelled out in there, in your budget letter. And I know usually everybody just opens it to the budget page, they don't read the first page, but usually it's in there. But that's something that we could obviously, and again, to your point, your strategic plan needs to be reviewed, obviously, every year. You know, what things have we finished on, and what things now take a priority, so.
So you're saying at the moment, because there is no functioning strategic plan, that the general manager is the one that sets the goals and the priorities.
So the board does.
The board does. So that doesn't necessarily need to be under the responsibility of the general manager, but setting the goals should be part of what the board does.
Oh, yeah. Mark?
I'm fine with most of the comments. I apologize for, I realized I was opening a can of worms here.
Thanks, Mark.
I just had such a strong sense that, you know, the district's been operating open loop for a number of years, and then the spirit of the district is, you know, we're doing the very best we can, which I actually understand,
Right.
but that's not really the standard we'd like to work with. And we would like to have goals and objectives. Ideally, we'd like to have a strategic plan, but we don't. So I don't see any point in referencing that. I think it would be nice, though, if we found someplace in here, or in someplace in our process, to acknowledge that the board is responsible for setting priorities for the general manager. The general manager is responsible for following through on those. And it would be nice if everybody knew what those were and how they're progressing.
Okay.
So maybe we need another line item under the responsibility of the board of directors is setting goals and priorities.
Yeah.
You can add one that says on an annual basis, the board will identify goals and objectives for the district for the upcoming year. And obviously, when I say that, you know, I'm thinking calendar year, but obviously for us, it would be budgetary or fiscal year.
Right.
Because that obviously is gonna be driven by finance. So I think that may maybe become part of our budget document. Here's the goals and objectives of this budget set by this board.
Mhm.
And it's incumbent upon the general manager to make sure those are carried out.
I do really like, I really do like that to help give us some direction on that. Thank you for opening the can of worms, Mark. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, the only thing that I had for this, oh, you had more?
I'm sorry, hopefully,
I know. I see Donna's deal online and I really want to
This is
get
why I
her.
wanna rely-
So I'm like,
I don't want to consume all our time, but I'm trying to just go through these and, so, the next one that I made a note of, was in, item number 13. I have to scroll down there and remind myself. Okay, 13 was about the minutes. Oh, the minutes. I'm
Oh.
sorry, but
okay.
What page are you
I,
on?
It's page 16,
Page 16.
yeah,
25 of the packet.
this is probably another can of worms, but I don't quite understand the extreme minimalism of our minutes, especially of late. And I can't find like general support for that. I mean, when I look online, at guidelines for minutes, they frequently say not only should you take care to detail precisely what action was taken, what was the motion, but they often say you should try and summarize the discussion, which I realize will be very controversial and maybe people don't want to deal with it, but the minutes are not very informative right now, and at least I think it would be appropriate to ask, is that really our intent? Is that really what we think should be the case, that the minutes are almost useless? I just I can't help asking.
Yeah, I know that there are some things that came up in like the last minutes and someone completely interpreted them wrong because they were just they were very simple. But I don't know, maybe someone else could better answer this, but I think that the reason they got to be so minimal is because the process during the board meetings started becoming a lot longer because they would a certain board member would sit and pick apart how the minutes were, and it became like this lengthy half hour, 45-minute thing of going through the minutes, but maybe that is not why things changed.
I can explain. So when Holly was here, she was doing kind of a hybrid of an action and a summary. And the thing is there's action, there's summary, and then there's verbatim. She was kind of trying to do somewhere in the middle. And it just got to be where it was really difficult. I mean, I'm sitting here and sometimes it's really hard to gather all the conversation and who said what and why. And that's why we record the meetings, that's why people are able to go. And so back when we didn't have recordings, people would do summary or verbatim minutes because you had to inform the public some way, somehow. Well, since now everything's recorded and everything's out there, there's really not that need anymore. I know that a lot of people are upset that the motion is not stated, but the motion is on the memo, which you can find online. And so to me, it's like, I kind of looked around, I looked at Soquel Creek and I looked at a couple other districts and they're doing it actually far less than I'm actually doing in our minutes. And so I kind of found that interesting. On one of them, they don't list the motion at all anywhere, it seems like, that I could find. So, yeah, I mean, everybody I think is kind of doing things a little bit different. And that's kind of the problem with action, summary, and verbatim, is you're gonna have some people that will sit there and tell a type verbatim minutes, and you'll have other people that'll try to do it from watching the recording, and things get missed, right? So action minutes is really all it's supposed to be, is who was there, the motion is in the memo, but you put the action, who voted on what, and that's it. And then public comment. And I noticed on a lot of the public comment, which I've always kind of felt weird about, is they don't even put the person's name. They'll put, we had 2 people speak during public comment. To me, I think that's more appropriate. I haven't gone that route because I know that everybody's used to seeing who said what, but these are just things that every entity kind of does differently. So.
Question. Jen, do you include a link to the recorded meeting?
Yeah, the
Oh,
link
in your
is
min-
on the
in your min-
website. So
in
when
your
you
minute.
go to- No, when you go to agendas and minutes at the top, the link is right at the very top. But it's not.
So
in
it's
the-
separate, so people have to dig for it.
Not really, it's just when you go to admin, you go to agendas and minutes, it's the very first link.
Would it be hard to to put a hyperlink in your minutes for people if they want to read the minutes and then they want to go to the,
I don't think it would be cumbersome, no.
oh, okay,
Mm-mm.
okay.
For me, I actually created the YouTube channel that we use now because when I first started here, we weren't even posting committee meetings at all. The recordings were not even being posted. And so I
Thank you
went,
for doing that.
yeah, so I created that and I actually edit some of them because we have a lot of dead time in the beginning.
Sure.
And so I figured out how to edit video, which is not my forte, but I figured it out. And so that's why that's there now.
Yeah, well,
Because I think it is very important for the community to be able to see
Mhm.
everything, not just the board meetings.
and that makes it easier for you to make them brief. So if people want the detail, they can go to the video. Yeah.
Mark?
I appreciate that response. I mean, since I raised this, I'll just say where I am with it right now. You know, unless other people have other input, I'm satisfied with what you're saying because what I mostly wanted to understand is like, what's our policy and what's the rationale for it? And if I understand now, it's that minutes are kind of obsolete. There's no real point to them. And
Not one way of recording.
and
Yeah.
and
People watch the videos more than they actually look at them. If we're
um,
completely honest.
I certainly don't want to burden staff, you know, with needless, you know, additional work. So if people are satisfied with the solution of linking directly to the video, which I think is a good suggestion, I have nothing to add.
Yeah, and also I think you need to remember that Jen was doing all the minutes for all the committees and the board prior to first of the year when we made department heads responsible. The only reason she's here today is that she'll be doing a meeting next month. I won't be here anymore. But anyway, so she was just being overwhelmed with minutes, and so she has other duties we had to get to. So it works. You know, is it perfect? No, but again, with the big help of having it recorded, you can access the information you need.
Okay, before I go out to public comment, I just have one thing, and I really want to get to our next items because we are running a little long on time. We have someone that's sitting online that I think is going to be very useful for one of the next items. So I just wanted to come back and say that I really do support putting that censure policy in there. I think there was a note that said it could go here because we were deleting the recall. I found like another water district that has a pretty good layout of how they write their censure policy, and I think it's absolutely necessary that we have some teeth to our board policy manual because otherwise we're just saying things. So, did we have any other comments further on this board policy manual here, Mark?
Anyway,
Okay.
the next thing, item 14, where there's some additional blue text, there's just a typo. I think somebody could just go in there and change "and" to "any," and that would be that.
Okay. All right, and we had some public comment here in the room.
Yes, Jim Mosier, and just very briefly in the minutes, I totally agree that having the meetings recorded is great. On the Budget and Finance Committee, and it's really appreciate getting that on. I just want to relate one experience I had with minutes that was a problem, which is that I had someone ask me, what did the board do around the LAFCO election?
That was the one, yeah.
And I went to the
Yeah.
minutes to make sure I wanted to be able to reference them. Here are the minutes, they voted for Jim Anderson, and that wasn't in the minutes. And to refer that, to get that information out of the video would have been very cumbersome. So it would have been very helpful to me in this very particular instance to have a little bit more information, just, you know, what the motion was. And
Yeah, we amended that. I just haven't posted them.
Oh.
That was my
Yeah.
one experience.
Yeah, that's exactly the experience that I had, is someone thought that the board voted for me and I was like, no, that's not what happened. They're like, well, they said you discussed why you wanted to run. I'm like, I kind of more discuss that you should vote for Lonnie.
That's why I didn't want to be.
Why didn't why? I was like, why did I apply to this? Like, I'm too busy. But okay, I think that the board policy manual with all of that, I think the censure is in there. I would really like that to be in there when it goes to the full board. And these changes that we have, but is everyone satisfied for this to leave committee? And I didn't check online. I know we have one person online. No, okay. All right, are we allowed to take one of the items out of order and move that watershed? Because Donna Deal has been sitting online for a very long time.
As long as the board's okay, committee's okay with it.
Okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, so she actually used to head this program, I believe, so I'd really like to not keep her waiting too much longer. Thank you for hanging on there. All right, so we're going to be moving on to the water shed, what is it? Stewardship grant, is that how it's written? Sorry, I'm all the way down in this policy.
Yeah, and if you, in your packet, you have a little memo from me, and you can see that this was a program that the district had. We began it in 2004. The district budgeted between 15 and 17,500 to support such things as classroom watershed education for students, outdoor watershed education, science camps, and community and public education. The program was stopped several years ago, but when the program was active, the awardees were selected by a District 5-member education program advisory commission. And the question is for this committee, is the administration committee want to reconsider this to recommend it to the board of directors to reestablish the program? And if so, what amount would the district or would the committee recommend to the board? And you can see there was a press release back from 2017 where we announced that we were giving, or we had available 17,500, and then who those people who were awarded grants. And so that's just kind of the background. And if we're going to do this, it's budget time, it'll be time to do it.
Yeah, I'll kind of start this one a little bit. I know that we briefly touched on this in the environmental committee, and we had a lot of comments from a board member that the people were against this program, and that's why it was cut. But I do, if anyone's interested, I do have a bunch of articles from that time where the public opinion was actually against the cuts, and they were really strongly opposed to cutting any of the environmental funds, but it still ended up happening. And so this is something that I would really like to see come back to the district. I think it really helps also not only with, creating future stewards of the land, but it also is really good PR for the water district. And, when I was campaigning, when I go and I talk to families up at the school, like people are like, oh, I hate the water district. But and I'd really like to change that tone in the public. And if we're helping give grants for their kids to go to camp, I think that would really change the public opinion of us. And we're also, investing in the next generation. And I think that's really important. But I'll open it up to discussion for anyone else on the board that would like to comment anything. We can start with Shelley.
I think
You looked at me.
Oh, I'm being recorded
Yeah.
for minutes, okay. I have grandchildren that are, have the program like middle schools, the up and down the coast. I think it's important that we bring in how we can be the stewards, as you were saying, and the next gen to make sure that they have the understanding. It's a great PR tool. It's a way to get out there, talk about what you're doing, what you can do, maybe even have some programs. My oldest granddaughter is going to tech. She's getting a tech where she interviewed, and she's going to follow along and be part of tech. So I think there's ways that you can give some scholarships and be a part of these grants where you get it into the public mind and start fostering that. So I'm so sad to hear it went away, but I feel optimistic if it were to come back up online, and you could contact the science teachers at, the schools, the different schools throughout, up and down.
I'll just go down, Jeff.
Okay, so looking at the memo here, this was to support classroom watershed education for students, outdoor watershed education, science camps, and community public education. That's a pretty broad and aggressive list of things to do.
Yep.
And I don't know how you could take, $15,000 to $20,000 and spread it across that and do a lot of meaningful things across all of those. So could we be more specific about what we're actually proposing? Are we gonna give kids a scholarship to go to science camp or something? Or are we gonna give grants to teachers for materials, or I don't know. I'm just,
Were there any program evaluations, like, you have evaluations once you take a course? What were the higher responses to which portion of this
Yeah.
as far as a program evaluation?
exactly,
And if that was in classroom, then maybe that's where you devote
yes.
more of your fiscal monies to.
Yeah, because this is sort of a broad brush and
Right.
undefined,
Where do you want to focus?
because you could easily spend $15,000, for example, on just classroom enhancements across the school districts here.
Right.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'm looking at the old website and the grants were like $2,500 a piece. The biggest one was $3,000, I think. So they're not they're not spending it all on one person.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 5,000 was a good sized one, but they're around $3,000 a piece is what they have been in the past.
And it was like mainly, what were those going toward?
Fifth graders to science camp, lower cost for families of fifth grade students attending the Camp Campbell Outdoor Science Camp in 2018. Banana Slug String Band, interactive and engaging performances. Family Science Night at SLE. Water and environmental awareness through science literacy, K-3. That was at the Bobcat Elementary School, so just.
Yeah, and I know that like 2,500 doesn't sound like a much, but for a school that might not, have that budget to send the kids to camp, like having that little bit more, and maybe they can help low income students that can't, afford to go to camp or something like that. Like it could go a long ways, I think.
And a lot of these are recurring year after year.
Yeah.
They're kind of the same thing coming back to the same thing.
Okay. Mark?
I like the direction. I'm wondering if we could hear from Donna before there's a lot of further discussion that's
Okay.
not informed by her.
Okay. I don't know, Donna, if you're online, I think that you used to be the part of this committee or headed the committee, if I'm not mistaken. This is also before my time, so if you are willing to speak and kind of give any background on it, we would love that, Donna. She's still listening. Been a really long time.
So she can, if she unmutes, she'll be able to talk.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me or letting me know this was happening, Jim. And yes, I did serve as the chair of this committee for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I served on it, I believe, from the very beginning. And from my perspective, having looked at many applications from many different agencies and individuals, I think that it did provide, not only the tangible resources for people to develop and or enhance programs, but it did provide that public awareness, and I think it enhanced the reputation of the district throughout the district. Our funding was not limited to the San Lorenzo Valley or to the water district's boundaries, but by and large was expended within those ranges. I remember we had some applications from people, for example, in Watsonville who wanted to bring children to the San Lorenzo Valley who had never been here, to educate them about to educate them about the water, but mostly using experiences at the San Lorenzo River. We had people in Santa Cruz who wanted to enhance programs that that dealt with the San Lorenzo River in Santa Cruz. So, you know, there was some outreach, or I wouldn't say that we did the outreach, but we were, people knew about our grant program and came to us. And I think through that, we were able to expand our reach and our reputation. I think there are some programs and some services that were developed and purchased through the funding that we provided that the school district singular and teachers could not have afforded. In other cases, we were able to enhance what they already had. In a few cases, we were able to help them start new programs. You reminded me of the Banana Slugs String Band. Is that the right name? We gave them grants pretty regularly. And those events, their concerts, were held in the community and were open to the community and brought families together and got children engaged. I think it was a wonderful public relations enterprise. When the funding was, I won't say it was cut, it was just eliminated from the budget, I guess. I did ask about that because understanding had been that the funding for this program came from revenue that result from this, sale of property that the water district owned. And I was told by the then general manager that all of those resources had been expended and there was nothing left in that fund. So if you are interested in reestablishing this, which I heartily encourage you to do, you just have to know that at least as far as I know, that source of funding doesn't exist anymore. So if there's anything, oh, and by the way, the membership of the committee was made up of an appointee by one appointee by each of the board members. So so I was appointed, oh gosh, I forgot now. Anyway, one person per board member. And I don't remember that we had a fixed term. We just kept, I guess we had to be reappointed when the board member that appointed us was elected or reelected. So that's how that happened. If there's anything I can help you with beyond that, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll try to dredge up my memory and let you know what I can remember.
All right, thank you so much, Donna, for that. Does that help you with your direction, Mark? Did you have any more comments on that?
In the interest of time, no, I'm
Okay.
not gonna say more.
Let me ask a quick question here. It sounds to me like this program might run into the same Prop 218 funds issue that the rate assistance program runs into. I'm not sure whether this could be funded out of our normal revenue stream from selling water. We'd have to look at that.
Well, we do have an agenda item on the upcoming board meeting about sale of property, so maybe we could do something like that.
Well, but like, as she said, you know,
Mhm.
previously this was funded by the sale of some property.
Mhm,
And that immediately rang a bell that said to me,
mhm.
they were not funding it out of water rates. And therefore, you know, we'd have to look at where this, legally, where this could be funded.
Mhm, mhm.
Maybe that's another donation we should box.
That's another thing, yeah.
Okay. But also, is there ability to partner, say, with parks? Like, you know, I have my puppy pass, and I know if you go to the different parks, like Big Basin, they talk about fire restoration, Cal Fire, water yeah.
Mhm.
Here's ways, can you partner with some of those
Mhm.
entities to help do a type of presentations on the education, and they step in, and that way the burden financially doesn't have to fall on, but it comes together as up under the fire, up under the parks, up under, you know, as far as, you know, whatever time of year you're going to feature,
Mhm.
how this, because there's different, way I drive through Alba all the way over, there's different, you've now entered the Laguna watershed or whatever watershed I've entered all along those
Mhm.
roads. So what does that mean? What are we doing about it? How does that fit in? And so therefore the budget maybe could partner with some of those.
Yeah.
If they're already doing something.
I think that's one of the areas that the water district kind of falls short of is building those partner relationships, and something that we could probably do better on. And you know, maybe that's bringing everyone together and some type of a meeting or something, you know, but and just, you know, working, we need a general manager that we can develop more of those relationships too, but we definitely fall short there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk with legal also about
Hmm.
sources of funding for this.
We haven't heard from Cheryl.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions on the funding, but also what the mechanism was for the grants, and what kind of outcome they were getting. But when we're talking about just a general idea about this, I'm jazzed about it. And not just for students, but also for the community. I think community outreach is something I've been preaching. And this is what we're talking about. For the kids, another partner agency that you might want to consider is the Boulder Creek Recs and Park Department. They do a lot of kid-related activities, and this could be something that they could, they would probably be able to include in curriculum, that sort of thing, as a partnership. And so just another entity to keep on your radar as someone to partner with, to get a nonprofit agency, basically, that, you know, they've got volunteers and maybe subject matter experts from the department, from the water district, could help develop some curriculum, that sort of thing.
So actually, that's funny that you say that, is because when this is kind of brought up to me about bringing this program back, at the same time, I was talking with Hallie over at Parks, and Steve wanted to do an after-school environmental program for the kids,
There
but
you
she
go.
was struggling with funding.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's fun. I had these two separate things coming to me at the same time, and I was like, oh, well, you know, like maybe so. Yes, that would be, they would be eligible to like apply for this type of thing, and we could partner with Parks. So yeah, if this were to go through, that would be completely something that's possible.
Yeah. So I guess it all boils down to, do we even have any money to do anything with? And
Yes.
so back to budgets and finance to find out whether this is a go or not, and how much money would be available or not. And then we can decide, well, what do we want to do with this? And all these things are great. I would love to see the community public education part. Yes, getting this kind of information and fun activities for kids is wonderful and does create new stewards for the environment. So it's really just planting those seeds of conservation and awareness of the environment. But we also have adults out there that we need to reach. those adults that say, I hate the water district. You know, how do we reach those people and tell, you know, get them involved and get them to see what we're doing? So that may be a separate thing, and that may not be what we want to do with these particular funds. But that kind of thing was addressed in the old strategic plan. I keep going back to that because I did read it. And there was some good stuff in there, and they were talking about doing some public outreach and some public education, and suggested that a particular position be responsible within water district, be responsible for coordinating that sort of thing. My question is there somebody here that can at least steward something like this, and who would that be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought, is that, you know, no, and
Yeah, we have like a vacancy in our environmental.
no,
people, so-
exactly, and
But-
exactly, and so, you know, this is not, I never come from a point of criticism. I always come from a point of questions. How can we do this? What is the mechanism to do this? Who are the personnel that might help us do this? And there was the idea that this would be a good thing to do back in 2016, and then you know what happened. And the district's been playing, the water district's been playing catch up and just trying to deal with emergencies since then. So understandable, but you know, at some point we want to be able to be proactive instead of reactive. And if we're going to be proactive, this is a proactive thing to do. And it's a wonderful proactive thing to do. And I think we don't want to lose any momentum going forward with this kind of thing. But again, we don't know what the parameters are that we can actually do anything. If we have no money to do this, how would we do it? If we only have a little bit of money to do this, what would we do? So it all goes down to funding and staffing. And if we have a staff person here at the district, maybe that person can partner with other nonprofits and that sort of thing and do something really low cost that would be impactful. So
I think what you have to do, you know, moving forward with the ratepayer assistance program and this program, because it is non-218 money, I think you got to figure out how much money do you have?
right.
And then it's incumbent upon the board or these committees, this committee of budget and finance to say, okay, well, this year we're going to delegate 25% of that pot to the watershed grants and the 75 to the ratepayer system. Vice versa. I think it's a moving target based upon your involvement of people who need the ratepayer assistance. You may have a year where you don't have that many people applying for it, so you could devote more money to the watershed grants. I think it's kind of a moving target. So, but I think the question is that we have to find out first is, what is that pool of money that we have available? And then how do we want to divide that up? Or how should we divide it up?
I agree. This probably should also go to budget and finance. If it's quick, and then we're gonna go to public comment because we have one more thing and trying to get through this meeting.
You know, I like where we're headed. I don't think it's important that I add anything, but I'll just say, as far as I understand, there is actually an ample amount of funding available via property tax. It's not restricted.
Okay.
And I do think that this is interesting in the spirit of outreach. I mean, because some of the things the district is spending money on for outreach are of having limited impact. This is something different. But I also think it would be responsible to run it carefully, as it seems to have been in the past, and you know, gather feedback on what the impact is. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Should we have?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, as I was listening to you discuss this, a couple of things came back up from my memory. One of the things that we funded, I think, more than once was a video project that Fred and Roberta McPherson did on, you know, where does your water come from? That wonderful series. And those video discs were made available and I think placed in the libraries at least in the San Lorenzo Valley, if not throughout the system. So in terms of partnering, I'm thinking that the library system, and particularly the Felton Library that has a focus on environmental education, might be another partner that you would want to look to. And the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that there is a fund at the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County called the Fund for the, oh gosh, the Fund for the Enhancement of the San Lorenzo Valley, the Fund for the Future of San Lorenzo Valley, that was established by Mary Hammer and her family years ago. That I just checked with them when she passed to see if it was still active, and they said it was. So I would imagine that there is some funding there that might be available if they wanted to consider. And beyond that, there are donors at the Community Foundation, or donors who have funds at the Community Foundation, whose particular interest is environmental issues. So I'm thinking there are partners out there, but I acknowledge you do need to have someone who at least part of their task would be to develop those partnerships and seek those funds. And that's another question for you. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm grateful for your consideration of this project, because I really believe it was beneficial, and I really believe that it enhanced the opinion of the district throughout the district and beyond. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Donna, for showing up and giving your perspective on this, because I think a lot of people weren't here for this. So it was really helpful having you. Really appreciate it. Did you have something, Jeff?
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were waiting.
I was waving to her.
Oh.
We're online, so I
Yeah.
can wave.
All right. Did we have any other public comment on this?
Yes, Jim Mosier from Pelton. I just want to speak in strong support for this. The Friends of San Lorenzo Valley Water have also discussed bringing the program back. It's another very high priority we have is watershed protection and public outreach, and this program does both. I was here when this happened. I want to say that the board meeting in which it was decided to cut this program, the room was full of people who were supportive. It was a very contentious meeting. And the 3 board members who had just been elected on the platform of the rate increase was too high and we need to make cuts. That was part of that, implementing that campaign promise. The only thing they found to cut in the end was the environmental program, which many of us thought was a really terrible idea. And what you should know is that Jen Nicholson was the environmental director at that time. She was very instrumental in making this program work. And she was very good at making partnerships that you're talking about. She was a really exceptional staff person, and it was very unfortunate that she ended up leaving, mainly as a result of the election and the follow-up to the election. I see this as been said, as an important public outreach component. I think it was much more effective than hiring an outside consultant to put newspaper articles in the Santa Cruz Sentinel, which you are spending money on. I don't see a 218 problem with this at all. This does not affect people paying. The 218 has to do with everyone paying the same rate for the same service. This is a decision. You can use any of the funds, I think. I mean, you can run this by legal, but I've done a lot of work in 218, and I imagine it was funded out of a different fund to keep it out of operations for some internal reason rather than for legal. And there may be a good reason not to take it out of operations, but I would see it just going into your public outreach budget, which you have. As the one thing that I want to caution, and this is a caution that happened at our last Friends meeting when this came up, not realizing that you were going to bring this forward, was we had Chris come and talk to us about the environmental department and all the work that he has to do. We were astonished at the list of responsibilities that he's taken over as a new head of the environmental program. There's just no way one guy could do that. And he was very diplomatic. But to have that vacant position for all these months under him, adding this to his agenda, I think we just have to be cautious. That you don't have a staff person right now, and it is largely volunteer, but someone has to organize those meetings. There is a staff function to this that we have to understand. That part of the budget here has to be to make sure that he has the resources to do the work to make that committee work. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear that in an ideal world that and we'd have another person there. We also have a 2-year budget, so hopefully we get someone in that position in the next 2 years. And if we don't do a placeholder now, then it won't happen for another 2 years. So, well, do we have any final comments on this? We can move to our last one. I would just ask if we could send it to the budget and finance and see what kind of money that we have available even. I think that would be our first starting point there, if that's okay to head that over there. Okay. All right, so the last one on the. Oh, go
How's
ahead.
that? Yeah, organizational chart, talking about that.
Yeah.
We do have, one of the things that we're doing, that position under, that was under Chris. Right now, staff is working on creating a special projects manager position. And so this project we just talked about right now, I think would fall into that person's category. So we're just we're looking at the description of it. But it is going to be forwarded as part of this year's budget. So there will be, we'll be recommending that. So just wanted to give you this chart. There are some things on here. We don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, just for your identification, and we'll come back to it next time. For instance, we have a field services and systems coordinator position that's been vacant for about 2 years. So one of the things we're having to look at is what's the impact on operations? Is that something that we really need? Is that a position that we could have moved somewhere else that'd be more efficient, more use of time? We've gotten by without it for 2 years, so the question is that really needed at this time? And then you'll notice we have a lot of managers and we have a lot of directors. One of the things is let's be consistent. Let's either make them all operators or all managers, depending on what they do. So I'll be bringing some of those back to you for consideration, and also probably looking at taking finance. For instance, it says vacant that our director of finance and business services. We do have a consultant who's been doing that for us. We'll probably continue to do it next year. So the idea would be to put at least her name down so we could show that we do have somebody that's minding the store, if you will, for lack of a better word. And so this is kind of gives you our org chart. We'll be coming back with some suggestions about maybe making it a little bit more efficient, and then a little bit more accurate as far as vacancies, and then suggestions moving forward as to either not fill some or either fill it. So, because I know we're running out of time, just give you some idea. If you have some questions, please feel free to give me a call or email, and we'll try to answer those for you. But this is just kind of what we're looking at right now.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Where would that new special projects person fall?
I think that they would fall at where we have a director of operations right there. That they're going to be a manager. It's going to be a standalone position.
Okay.
So it'd be right next to Chris and moving on down the line. But I see that they would be a manager, so it would be considered a management level position.
Okay.
Did you have something, Mark?
Yeah, sorry.
We can also bring it back next time.
Quick clarification. So, John, are you suggesting that new position will be one that's not in any box on this chart?
It'll be on its own box.
Right. I mean, I'm just clarifying. So it's a new.
You're creating a new
Created, right,
position.
yeah.
So there's still a vacancy under Chris.
I would actually leave that out. So Chris would be by himself, but the special projects manager will be taking some of the duties right now that Chris.
Okay,
is
so it does kind of replace one of the boxes.
correct. Yes.
Okay, thanks. So, the commitment you just made to get this squared away, I mean, I realize we have very limited time with you at this point. So what is your intent for when you depart? What will this look like?
I'll give you what I would suggest. I'll give it to Jen. She'll bring it back to this committee. And I'll have my edits in there about what I would, if I was still here, propose and why.
Good. So I don't know what to do with this much more general concern that I have, which is about persistent vacancies, lack of measurable progress on filling them. Did you want to comment on that?
I just think it's a unique time to be in not only this district, but any government functioning agency right now. The talent pool is very, very small. And so, a lot of people are going after a lot of the same fish, if you will. So I just think you got to be patient. It'll get here. I think you just need, again, I think right now there's some peace here, if you will. The meetings are a lot better when, at least from a temperature standpoint, than what I've seen in the past. So I just think we just need to have that commitment. I think the employees of this district are 100% committed to the district. I think your biggest asset is your employees. And so I just think, finding that right person to fill that void in the general manager spot for long term will be critical. And I think that's going to get you to where you need to be. But again, the competition that we have from other agencies for the same talent it's just, I've never seen it in a 40 some odd year career in government service. I've never seen the competition so fierce right now.
I can appreciate that, but is the district taking exceptional measures then to combat that?
I think they're doing the best they can within a limited budget, if you will.
Well, I'm asking about the budget. I mean,
yeah, I mean, could you attract more if you paid more? Perhaps, but then I would have to say I've seen it fall both ways. I've seen districts that offer less but offer long-term commitment to their employees, or a person is going to make that commitment. So I think right now, I think I would just hold the course. We just finished a compensation study. So there's going to, the results of that are going to be impacting the budget and impacting the employees' take-home pay eventually. So I think we're getting there. But I just think you got to stay the course. I think we've made some adjustments as an organization that for general morale, etc., will improve. It already has improved, but you'll see some great dividends from that. So I just think you just need to stay the course right now. Get a full-time general manager who's going to be here for a while, and let them just do their thing and manage what they do. I think I'm very appreciative of the. In my experience, everybody's talking about reputations. Everybody talks good that I've seen about the district. You have your couple of people, but I think we're on the right course. You just got to stay it, and just get our name out there a little bit more, and be more open and transparent in what we do. But overall, I just think if you get a person that's going to be here for a while in this role, I think things will stable out.
All right.
okay, you could.
Sorry. Yeah,
You're
one
gonna
more.
have
Go
to
ahead.
stop me,
We could also bring this back if there's a lot more you have to say too.
Well, the openness and transparency I feel are lacking right now. If this is really a priority for the district, I would expect every month there to be a report at the board level on progress and new measures being taken to address the lack of progress.
Well, I think you're seeing that right now. I have my all the departments have submitted, and we talked about it, the capital improvement program, because before it was just kind of mismatched. And so now the idea is to prioritize those in a 2-year increment and then a 5-year increment, and get that to the budget as part of the budget. And then that'll be your measure of how successful you're going to be, because the board and the directors, the managers have identified this is our #1 project for this budget year, and where are we on that? So I think that's coming. Whereas before we just had a whole. Of course, you got to remember too, we're coming out of 3 different emergencies, and so certain priorities got shifted around quite quickly. So but I think as things, absent, knock on wood, any other emergencies moving forward, I think things will become more normal.
I understand, but there are multiple vacancies on this chart that are not being advertised for on the district website.
Right. Because some of them do, in my opinion, do not need to fill. In my opinion.
Sorry, in your opinion,
There's some of them, like for instance, your field services and system coordinator.
Maybe not needed, right?
Not needed.
Okay.
And then the other one is your construction inspector. When you're a construction inspector, when you're building something, he's busy. when you're not building anything during the winter time,
Right,
he's not. So we're looking at things like, can we partner with another agency
right.
and borrow their or rent their construction inspector instead of making that a full-time position? You know, so
Agreed. Is that possible?
we're looking into it. Yeah, we've actually looked at other districts, Scotts Valley, for instance. Seeing that, hey, what are you doing? Do you have time to rent this person or whatever? So the other thing too is you can also rent one through a third-party, consultant. So rather than have a full-time position, or the other caveat would be have a position where that person could, have that person be an engineer, and you need an engineer all the time, but then also make him a construction, if he has, but he has to be obviously certified.
Yeah.
So we're looking at different things. So I don't want to sit there and convolute the process by saying, well, let's fill this position, but there may be more economical way to do that still serves the district well.
Just for clarity, are you looking for a director of operations or not?
At this point in time, we have an acting director of operations.
Understood.
And so I think that is going to be up to the board and up to the new general manager.
Okay.
Can I make one?
Yeah, go ahead.
We will be talking about AB 2561 at the May 15th, and I talked about vacancies and recruitment efforts for district for it's a 2024 calendar year, but that will be then a yearly thing as well.
It's a
Okay,
new state law where we have to report vacancies within the district and what we're doing about them.
Oh,
Basically. It's a new
okay.
law. It's just started. It will be starting this year.
Oh.
So not just for us, but for everybody, every governmental agency in the state.
okay.
So. And anyway, that was real quick. That's it. But anyway, so there we are.
All right, any comments from Jeff? Shelley? I'm always like Shelley, Cheryl, I gotta make sure I do it right. All right, and the only comment I had is just like, yeah, I just would like to see the district overall being more active in the recruiting instead of just kind of posting on the website and waiting people to come for them, like really actively getting out there trying to recruit people. So that is all I have. We've got to go out for public comment. There's no one in the room. There is I guess no one with their hands raised online. So I think we could call this meeting adjourned at 11:31. All right, making you guys go really long today.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Makes the day go quicker. At least for us. I don't know you guys.
She's like my ADHD. Exactly.
I had a problem last night.
I'm there with you, man.
So this same guy,
Tag the one across the street.
well, he did tag the building, well, it's not the guy that tagged the building, I don't know, but he hit our office.
Okay.
Went back, crawling around, so like
So that's
that,
what I thought.
hoses
Well,
and gas
there we
cans
go.
and things like
Hopefully
that,
you'll have
called
your
the sheriff.
answer.
He came again last night,
Shane and just.
and this time he got in the vehicle,
I've been trying every
Full
time I
radio.
put it on, it just slips right on.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's for.
said,
All right, all this
Hey.
budget stuff making it
So I'm
go
having to
super
dump
long.
something.
If we don't get it in, then it doesn't go.
Because I-
That's just it.
We don't need to
Well,
lose that.
we're gonna move to, if I can take it,
What
I'm
happened?
working somewhere else tonight, that's why I doesn't buy my place also, there's not. No May, no May.
Good idea.
Just.
Wow.
So you have to have the dump truck in the key. The sheriff's gonna come by this afternoon.
I'll bring it to
Jimmy,
you.
yes,
You know, you can't go any further.
Take a report, listen, I get like 5 items that's missing on the truck. So it's like, what's dollar value to them? So,
Right. Oh, yeah, and that way we turn in our.
yeah, but
I do find that productive.
we're still sure to keep on know that we're gonna get anything back from the Army for $1,000 radio.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but it's still-
just so you're aware, it happened.
Yeah, okay. Got it?
Yeah.
Did they just jump in the fence or what?
Yeah, but you can get around right by where you park.
Right.
You can get through there because he's walking around with a piece of hose to use at the gas tank.
Right.
And there's some soaker hose that's right there in the corner. They cut a piece of that off. They came through right there and the hose is kind of like hanging off the wall. They came through there, bounced around, had a mask on this time, had gloves on, a little more, but he had the yellow gas can that he used the last time he was here. So we think it's the same guy, you know.
But you get more clever.
Yeah, so anyway, I just want to let you know.
All right, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
We're being proactive about it.
know, right?
That's all I can do.
Uh,
I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done
Oh,
for
you
us.
bet. I didn't do that much, but it's been fine.
We were hoping to have you longer.
Yeah, I was too, but it